That's not possible. Alien girl learns the truth about human endurance. The first thing Liora noticed about Earth was the weight of the air. It pressed down differently than her homeworld's thin atmosphere, heavy and warm, filled with scents that tangled together. Soil, salt, sweat, and something sharp that made her throat itch. She had come to observe, not to participate. Or at least, that's what the Galactic Exchange told her. Her assignment was simple. Shadow a human subject, record observations, and submit them for the Academy's endurance study. Humans, after all, were considered fragile, soft-skinned, weak-boned beings. They lacked claws, fangs, or natural armor. What could possibly make them survive among predators and dangers? Her subject was a man named Daniel. He wasn't impressive at first glance. Lean but not towering, his dark hair matted with sweat. His shirt clung to his chest as he jogged down a dusty trail at dawn. Liora trailed behind, her recorder hovering at her shoulder. "You run every morning?" she asked, trying to keep pace. "Every morning," Daniel said between breaths. "Sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. Depends how I feel." Liora frowned. "Why? There is no predator. No chase. No prey." Daniel chuckled. "That's the point. We do it for ourselves. To push limits." Limits? Liora almost snorted. Humans had very obvious limits. Their lungs collapsed under strain, their muscles tore with overuse, and their fragile frames crumpled in accidents. Pushing limits was reckless. Yet Daniel jogged on, the rhythm of his feet steady, even as sweat poured down his face. By midday, the sun hung high, blistering the landscape in heat. Daniel had moved from jogging to carrying buckets of water to his garden. His back slick with effort. Liora sat on a shaded rock, fanning her skin membranes. "You should stop," she advised. "Your body is losing fluids rapidly. The signs are clear. You are overheating." Daniel wiped his brow and smiled. "I'll drink later. For now, work's not done." The alien girl blinked. On her planet, exertion beyond one's thermal tolerance meant certain collapse. To test him, she rose and scanned his vitals with her recorder. His heart rate was dangerously high. His temperature nearing thresholds she had been taught were lethal. Yet Daniel continued. By late afternoon, he chopped wood, swung tools, and still carried a strange tune under his breath. Liora stared, baffled. His body screamed exhaustion, but his will pulled him forward. Finally, she said aloud, "That's not possible. You should have stopped hours ago." Daniel grinned without slowing. "That's the trick, isn't it? Stopping is easy. Going on, that's where strength is." Night fell. The stars came alive overhead, brighter than the dull haze of her homeworld's sky. Daniel built a small fire, his arms trembling only slightly as he lifted logs. Liora approached, her recorder glowing with pages of data. "Your biology contradicts my Academy's records," she said firmly. "Your body should have failed by now. Organs should be shutting down." And yet, Daniel passed her a steaming mug. She sniffed, puzzled by the bitter scent. "Coffee," he explained. "Keeps me awake a bit longer." Her membranes quivered in disbelief. You purposely deprive your body of rest." "Sometimes. When it matters." His gaze went distant, reflecting the flames. "Back in the service, we'd march for days with almost no sleep. People collapsed, sure. But some of us kept going. Not because our bodies wanted to. Because we had to." Liora felt something shift inside her, a crack in certainty. "So your endurance, it's not just muscle and bone." Daniel nodded. "It's choice. Mind over body." She leaned back, her recorder humming as it tried to categorize this. The concept wasn't foreign, but the extent humans wielded it, overriding pain, exhaustion, even survival instincts, was staggering. Her species obeyed limits without question. Humans defied them. The next day she demanded proof. "Show me again," she said at dawn. Daniel smirked. "All right. But don't say I didn't warn you." They ran. Miles stretched beneath their feet, hills and dust and rising sun. At first she matched him, her alien lungs powerful, her limbs honed by lighter gravity back home. But as the hours dragged on, heat seared her vision, her breath came ragged, and her body screamed for relief. Daniel, though slower now, kept steady. His shoulders hunched, his steps less precise, but he pressed forward. At last, Liora stumbled, collapsing onto the dirt. Her recorder fell silent beside her. She lay panting, her limbs twitching from fatigue. Daniel slowed, crouched beside her, and handed her a canteen. "You lasted longer than I expected," he said kindly. She drank, the water scorching down her throat like fire. Her gaze fixed on him, standing despite his trembling legs. His chest heaving but still rising to go farther. "Impossible," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "Not impossible. Just human." That night, back at her outpost, Liora replayed the recordings. Again and again she heard his words. Not impossible. Just human. For centuries, her people had dismissed humanity as fragile. Yet watching Daniel, she realized fragility wasn't weakness. It was the canvas for resilience. Humans knew they could break, but still chose to push forward. That choice, more than muscle or bone, was their greatest strength. She filed her final report with trembling hands. Observation. Human endurance surpasses physical expectation. Conclusion. Limits are not merely biological. They are a battlefield of will. And as the stars wheeled above Earth, Liora whispered into the night, "That's not possible, and yet it is." That night, back at her outpost, Liora sat alone beneath the glow of her recorder. The device replayed Daniel's heartbeats, his strained breaths, the sound of his footsteps refusing to stop even when logic demanded collapse. Each note was a contradiction to everything she had been taught. Her people valued efficiency, balance, and safety. They obeyed their bodies' signals without hesitation. To push beyond limits was considered reckless, dangerous, even dishonorable. Yet here was Daniel, a human whose every weakness, fragile skin, brittle bones, finite lungs, should have doomed him. Instead he endured. Not because his body was stronger, but because he refused to surrender. Liora scrolled through her notes and forced her trembling fingers to type the final entry. Observation. Human endurance surpasses recorded expectation. Data. Extended exertion without collapse. Conclusion. Endurance is not bound to biology. It is bound to will. The words looked impossible on the screen, yet the evidence was undeniable. She set the recorder down and stepped outside. The Earth's night sky unfolded in a scatter of stars, brilliant and endless. She thought of Daniel still awake, perhaps tending his fire or rising at dawn to run once more. Her membranes quivered as she whispered to herself, "That's not possible." Then, after a pause, a new truth followed, quiet but certain. "And yet, it is." For the first time Liora understood. Humanity's strength did not lie in what they were born with. It lay in what they chose to become. Fragile, yes. Breakable, absolutely. But unyielding in ways no academy could measure. And in that realization, she felt a flicker of something dangerous and exhilarating. Admiration. Perhaps even hope.